The next is agenda item 9, petition debate, keep our parks advertising free. As with the previous item, the petition organiser has up to 5 minutes to present the petition and its objectives. The petition organisers are Robbie Gillett and Nicola Round. Please can I now ask Nicola Round to present the petition?
Thank you. Firstly, on behalf of 3,972 people who have now signed this petition, I'd like to just acknowledge the challenging financial situation that the Council faces and thank the Council for consulting on this important issue. Our petition asks to keep parks advertising free. Why are people so concerned by this issue? I think it's helpful to think about what it is, how it is that people feel about advertising, how it is that people feel about parks, and understand why people want advertising to stay away. What's advertising for? Advertising exists to make us buy something. And often, as is the case with the hundreds of commercial advertising sites we already see around our city, it's encouraging us to buy something that we probably don't really need. A new car, a hamburger, a pair of cheap jeans. In order to make us buy these things, advertising often makes us feel that we're lacking in some way. An ideal of beauty will sell you a fizzy drink. An image of success will sell you a fast car. A happy, smiling family, that ideal of happy, smiling family will sell you a supermarket ready meal. We compare ourselves to these ideals. We consume in order to make us feel better. In the long run, invariably, it doesn't work. It makes us feel stressed. What are parks for? Parks are places we go to relax, to de-stress, to escape from the pressures of modern life. Some other proposals in the consultation seem to be a little bit more in keeping with what we expect parks to be for, events, activities. Advertising really isn't. There are some very basic criteria suggested in the consultation which might be excluded, types of advertising which might be excluded. These include tobacco, alcohol, payday loans. This really goes no way to addressing what the wider impacts of advertising commercial messages have. Some people say, if you don't like it, don't look at it. You have a choice. Do we really have a choice? Do we really have a choice whether we see outdoor advertising or not? I would say that we don't. Outdoor advertising is unavoidable and is already all over our city. The issue around choice is not just about whether I can choose to see an advertisement or not. Unfortunately, it's also about the lack of choice I have in how it affects me. A lot of people say, oh, I don't really see it, it doesn't affect me. Unfortunately, there is research to show that advertisers spend millions of pounds developing sophisticated techniques to affect us on unconscious levels. So we don't really have a choice about whether it affects us or not either. No wonder people don't want these type of messages in our parks as well. What sort of advertising do we see around our city? There's lots of car adverts. I would say that these undermine attempts to reduce traffic and cut air pollution, a really big problem in Bristol. We don't need adverts. You don't need more adverts in our parks as well. We should be reducing advertising, not increasing it. Junk food adverts all over our city. A report out last week showed very clearly that young people in particular, young people who are exposed, who regularly see junk food advertising messages, including outdoor advertising messages, advertisements for junk food, are more likely to be obese. This is a problem in our city. We should be addressing that problem, not introducing more risks for young people. Advertising like this undermines council initiatives like the Sugar Smart campaign. Seems very counterproductive. What about the impact on local businesses of outdoor advertising? Surely we should be encouraging people to shop locally, supporting the fantastic local businesses we have in Bristol. But they're surrounded by messages to shop elsewhere. The council estimates, or the consultation proposal estimates that around £50,000 could be generated in revenue from advertising in parks. I would say this is really not worth the wide-ranging negative impacts that it would have. In times of austerity, it might be tempting. It might seem that this is a reasonable proposal, but once the advertising is here, it's here to stay. It won't be got rid of. So in conclusion then, on behalf of everyone who signed the petition, I'm urging the council to drop any plans to introduce advertising to parks, to keep parks advertising free, and indeed to understand that this isn't just an issue about parks. If we agree that commercial advertising doesn't have a place in our parks, why does it have a place on the streets where we live? We ask the council to take the opportunity presented by the development of the local plan, the new local plan, to introduce a new policy restricting the amount of outdoor advertising in Bristol. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the debate. Councillor Bradley.
Lord Mayor, councillors and members of the public. Bristolians love their parks and green spaces. They're one of the jewels in the crown of our fabulous city. I've lived in lots of other places, but I've never known anywhere where people use the parks so much. Parks are safe havens for a stroll. They're places where sports teams can hone their skills. And above all, they're a fantastic resource for parents of small children, and particularly for the many disadvantaged mothers who live in unsuitable accommodation in our inner city without any gardens or green spaces in their homes for their children to play. St Andrew's Park, which we've already heard about, on a sunny summer afternoon is a joy to behold. We must preserve these important spaces. I'm personally very sympathetic to the sentiments of this petition. As a socialist, I believe in public ownership and I'm strongly opposed to commercialism. I agree with the organisers that advertisements can have destructive and damaging impacts upon young people in particular, making them crave hamburgers, fizzy drinks and designer shoes. However, if it is a choice between failing to keep our parks up or even closing some of them, I would reluctantly prefer the advertising option. We have to keep our parks properly resourced and maintained, and we may have to make some compromises until the madness of austerity policy is over and local services are properly funded again. The consultation on parks revealed strong opposition to billboards, and I'm pleased to say the officers have stated that they will not be considering them at the present moment. Instead, they're thinking of less intrusive forms of advertising, such as notices on bins and lampposts, and I urge them to continue thinking along these lines. Finally, I have to repeat what has been said many times in this chamber. The administration is faced with having to implement financial restrictions forced upon it by the horrendous slashing of funding to councils imposed by the Conservative government and its erstwhile collaborators, the Lib Dems. If the compassionate Tories on the opposing benches, and I believe this is true, care as much as they say about libraries, parks and other services, then I suggest they resign their membership of their party and cross the floor to join us in Labour. The only party committed to reversing the Tory cuts.
Councillor Galandris.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Nicola, I'm going to stick to the knitting and stick to your petition, if I may, rather than launch into a tirade of international and national politics. So, firstly, many congratulations on bringing this petition to the Chamber, and thanks also to Robbie, who obviously worked with you, and thank you to all the people who signed the petition. Getting 3,900 people to sign a petition is not easy, so very well done. The Conservative group are happy to support the sentiments of your petition. Our parks and green spaces, as you said, and I've got it written down here, are intended to be places of leisure where you can get away from it all. People want to be able to relax and escape for a few brief moments from the hurly-burly of today's very busy world. Frankly, it's hard to relax when surrounded by large ugly advertising billboards. They jar with the green landscape and prevent people from truly relaxing. They have no place in our parks and green spaces. We do recognise that the council does need to look at all possible income streams. There are ways, I'm sure, of increasing income from parks, but these need to be ways which complement rather than conflict with the core ethos of a park, which is a place of leisure and enjoyment. So cafes, and we've just done the petition on Fays Cafe, sporting facilities, sporting lessons, one-off activities, some modest retail offerings, all these I think are acceptable. It might even be possible to seek commercial sponsorship, as we see with some roundabouts in North Bristol, which have beautiful floral displays and a very small discreet sign saying sponsored by XYZ. So in summary, I do understand the council's need to explore fundraising options, but please, Marvin, no large advertising billboards in our parks.
Councillor Clark.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Lord Mayor. Harriet, Labour aren't quite the only party who are against austerity. I think you find the Greens are as well. I'd like to start by congratulating. The organisers of this important petition, especially Nicola, Robbie and the others at Adblock Bristol. They're doing a great job around the issue of keeping Bristol a great place to live and helping to protect our kids from some of the pressures imposed by commerce on them. So I suppose the truth is really that no one in this chamber really wants advertising hoardings in our park. The question is whether we're prepared to stick with this belief or take the relatively small amounts of cash on offer. My firm view, and the view of the Green Group, and the view of the 4,000 odd people who've joined in the petition, is that it's just not worth it. The thought of large intrusive hoardings in park trying to sell me things I don't want and probably don't need is horrific. I want the freedom to choose when I'm exposed to advertising. If I'm watching ITV, yes. If in newspapers and magazines, yes. In parks and public spaces around the city, no. There are many reasons why this idea is disastrously wrong. Some have already been mentioned by Nicola and others, but let's look at a few fundamental questions. Nicola's told us what parks are for. In essence, they're places for urban dwellers to stroll around and have a little taste of nature. They're places for parents to bring their kids and allow them to run around with as few cares as possible. Now, let's think about why advertisers want to put these billboards in parks and elsewhere. The only reason they want to do that is to sell us more stuff. Stuff we don't need, stuff that pollutes our town, stuff that really won't be making us happy anytime soon. How do the advertisers do this? Excuse me, I was going to have a photo on the screen there. Is that? Oh yes, thank you. How do advertisers do this? Well, they do this. This is a picture in Liverpool, just by Lime Street Station. This is a picture of a video, actually. So these cars are driving towards you. You see the scale from the bus on the left. This is absolutely huge and horrific. This is what they do. We're made to feel too old, too poor, too overweight. Many academic studies have shown this can directly affect our mental health and leads to problems such as eating disorders, depression, and low confidence. Even crazier in this context is that the advertising campaigns that would be shown often go completely against our own council initiatives. So, for example, when Coca-Cola were recently told that they had to serve water from their Christmas truck rather than Coca-Cola. We're all worried about the 300 people plus a year who are dying from car exhaust. Yeah, are we really going to potentially allow large diesel 4x4s to be advertised in parks? You know, where's the logic in it? I've got so I'm coming to the end of my time, so sorry. So is it possible to do anything about this issue? Well, we're not the first community to have thought about it. Many, many communities around the world have done something about it and have stopped it. There's also equalities issues here. I expect we may be getting adverts in Dame Emily Park in Ashton.
Councillor Clark, can you wind up now, please?
Certainly, or Eastfield Park, but I don't suppose we'll be seeing them on the Downs anytime soon. To sum up, the idea of putting advertising in parks is really a crazy one, and I challenge anyone of whatever political persuasion to look in their heart and say it's a good one. To playfully pervert the Nike slogan, which might be appearing in your local park quite soon, just don't do it.
Councillor Joss Clark.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not wildly excited about advertising in or around our parks, but in light of the financial position we find ourselves in, and with respect to the sustainability of our parks, I feel that some form of advertising may be a necessary evil. This does not have to be a permanent solution or fixture, and any advertising can be easily removed and may not necessarily have to be there any longer than necessary. I'm talking primarily about not huge hoardings, but obviously just the smaller banners that could be placed on fences and etc. I understand that the Parks Forum are happy with advertising on railings outside the parks, and this seems to be the least disruptive use of the space. We need to we need to maintain our open space as clear as possible to allow families to enjoy time in the open away from advertising and other distractions. Thank you.
Can I ask the Deputy Mayor for Communities, Councillor Asher Craig, to respond, please?
Thanks. I'm going to keep it short. So the petition asks for the council to keep advertising out of our parks. And let me just remind everybody where we're at. 2010, Tories brought in their failed austerity measures. It has found councils here today across the country, we are experiencing 50% less funding overall from government. And as a result of that, we are between a rock and a hard place. But we've considered, or I have considered the petition, and it will be brought to Cabinet in May. I want to just say that we've looked at the substantial amount of comments that were put into the free text of the consultation, and they were clearly showing us that large billboards and other large advertising is not supported. And I'll have you know that's not something that I supported from the off. But it's a consultation, you have to offer up suggestions, and you can either like it or not like it. So my view is that when the Cabinet report comes to, Cabinet in May, we won't be supporting large billboard sites, but we are going to be doing some more work on what's known as kind of low impact advertising, and we want to engage with local communities to gain further insight into their views on how they feel about the kind of low impact advertising. And when I talk about low impact, I'm talking about things like lamppost banners. Many of you have seen some of them, like it's not in a park, but in Bishopston on Gloucester Road, you've got some of those really nice banners hanging from lampposts. Possibly small posters on bins, park leaflets, newsletters, even parking tickets, the website, maybe some toilets. We're going to look at all different options and see what people want to do. We don't want to, we're not going to create new structures or huge billboards as the ones that you've seen on the screen, for the sole purpose of advertising at this point in time. But we do want to look into more detail with some market experts to determine what the possibilities and locations are, not only in parks, but across the city. So as I said, we're not looking at introducing large advertising into parks, but I will say that we cannot preclude this from ever happening, as we may need to explore this again in the future if more income is required for council services. Thank you.
Thank you. I now ask the Council to note the issues raised in the petition together with the comments of the members during the debate at this meeting, which will be referred to the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor for Communities for consideration and response back to the petition organiser.